My name is Shell, and at 40 years old, my daughter came home from college to visit, but refused to sleep under the same roof because I had given her bedroom to her cousin. I'll sleep somewhere else," she shouted, her face flushed with anger as she threw her house keys at me. I stood frozen, my heart splintering at the sound of the metal hitting the floor. I wanted to cry, to scream, to defend myself, but I didn't. I just stood there, holding my breath as she stormed out. A few days later, she regretted it. "If you've ever felt betrayed by the people you've given everything to, the ones who were supposed to love you most, tell me where you're watching from." I had been counting down the days until Emma came home. My little girl, my pride, my everything, was in her final year of college, only a month away from graduation. I had imagined this weekend 100 times. Hugs at the door, late-night talks in the kitchen, laughter echoing through the house the way it used to when she was little. I wanted to celebrate how far she'd come, how much she'd achieved. It had been months since I'd seen her in person. I knew college was demanding. I told myself she was just busy. Still, the silence between calls stretched longer each week. Once, she'd call every night just to tell me about her day, about classes, her friends, the new cafe she discovered. Then it became once a week. Then not at all. I'd stare at my phone, convincing myself she wasn't ignoring me. She was just living her life. And yet, when I finally got her message saying she'd be home for a few days, I could hardly contain my excitement. I spent the night before her arrival preparing everything. I scrubbed the kitchen, dusted every corner, and filled the fridge with her favorite snacks: chocolate-covered almonds, sparkling lemonade, and that strawberry yogurt she used to love. I wanted her to feel special, to feel home. But when I went upstairs to set up her room, I froze. Her old bedroom wasn't hers anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. A year earlier, my nephew Josh had moved in. He was a good boy, quiet, polite, respectful. His parents, my brother and sister-in-law, were going through financial hardship, and Josh needed a place to stay while working part-time and studying. At the same time, I was barely managing on my own. I had spent years paying for Emma's tuition, housing, food, and books, all without letting her take a single loan. I didn't want her to graduate with debt. I didn't want her to struggle the way I did, but that came at a cost. To keep up with her expenses, I had worked extra hours, taken out a home equity loan, and cut corners everywhere I could. There were nights I skipped dinner to save money. Days when the electric bill made me panic. When Josh needed a room, renting out Emma's made sense. It helped with the mortgage and gave me breathing room. So now, as I set up the pull-out couch in the guest room for Emma, I tried to make it warm and inviting. Clean sheets, fresh flowers, a soft blanket that smelled faintly of lavender. It wasn't her old room, but it was cozy enough for a few nights, or so I hoped. The next evening, I heard the crunch of tires on the driveway. My heart fluttered. She was here. I rushed to the door, hands trembling with excitement. And there she was, Emma, my grown daughter, standing on the porch. Her hair was shorter now, styled differently. Her expression was sharper somehow, more distant, but she was still my baby. "Sweetheart," I said, reaching to hug her. She gave me a quick smile, the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hey, Mom. Let me take your bag," I offered, already reaching for her suitcase. She shook her head, brushing past me into the hallway. "It's fine. I just want to lie down." "Of course," I said softly. "I set up the guest room for you." She paused, turning slightly. "The guest room?" Her tone had changed. Cold, confused. I hesitated. "Yes, since Josh is staying in your old room now." For a moment, she didn't say a word. Then her face hardened, and her voice came out sharp as glass. "Wait, what?" "Josh," I repeated, trying to stay calm. "My nephew. He's living here now. You know, your cousin. He needed a place to stay, and your room was empty for so long. I thought you gave away my room?" She cut in, her voice rising. "It's just a room, Emma," I said carefully. "You haven't used it in years." Her eyes filled with anger. She dropped her bag to the floor with a thud and stormed down the hallway. I followed helplessly as she flung open the door to her old bedroom. Josh's things were everywhere. His desk, clothes, laptop, books neatly stacked by the window. His life had quietly replaced hers. She turned toward me, shaking. "So what am I now? A guest?" "Emma, please don't be like this," I tried, my voice trembling. "You have your own apartment, your own life. Josh needed help and you needed money, right?" she snapped. "I thought I was coming home." "This is your home," I whispered. She laughed, bitter and sharp. "No, Mom, it's his home now." Before I could speak again, she reached into her coat pocket, pulled out her house key and threw it at me. It struck my chest and fell to the floor with a metallic clang that seemed to echo through every corner of the house. "I'll sleep somewhere else," she shouted. Then she grabbed her suitcase and slammed the door behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. The key glinted on the floor like a piece of my heart left behind. My fingers trembled as I bent to pick it up. "Aunt Shell?" a soft voice said behind me. It was Josh, standing in the hallway, his face pale with concern. "Are you okay?" I forced a small smile. "Yeah," I whispered, though I wasn't. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the key on the coffee table. It felt heavier than gold. I had worked so hard for her, for us. I'd given up everything so she could have a better life. And the first time I made a decision for myself, she treated me like a stranger. When Emma was born, I was only 18, just a scared girl with no plan and no one to turn to. I can still remember sitting on the bathroom floor, clutching that pregnancy test, shaking from head to toe. When I told her father, Mark, who was 23 at the time, he didn't even hesitate. "You need to get rid of it," he'd said flatly, as if we were discussing an inconvenience, not a life. I packed my bags that night and left him. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing for sure. This baby was mine, and I was going to keep her. Those years that followed were brutal. I worked long shifts at a diner during the day, cleaned offices at night, and still found time to rock her to sleep in the early hours. I went without food so she could have formula. I traded sleep for survival, but I never once complained. Because when I looked at her tiny face, I saw purpose. I saw love, maybe that's why I spoiled her. I wanted her to have everything I never did. I didn't realize I was raising a girl who would grow to expect everything. The older she got, the less she saw what I gave up for her. Gratitude turned into entitlement. Love turned into demands. When it was time for college, she had choices. She could have gone to a local school, stayed at home to save money. But no, she wanted to move away, to live on campus, to experience life. I told her I couldn't afford it. She looked at me like I had broken a promise. "You always find a way," she said, frowning. "You've never told me no before." And she was right. I never had. So, I worked myself to the bone, took out loans I knew I couldn't handle, and sent her off with everything she wanted. And as she built her life, mine quietly unraveled. The house grew emptier. The bills piled higher. The loneliness crept in. And then came Josh, a breath of kindness in the silence. He helped with groceries, fixed things around the house, asked how my day was. He didn't take me for granted. He made this place feel like home again. Meanwhile, Emma's calls became nothing more than requests for money. Rent, books, food, nights out. She never once asked how I was doing. The last time she called, it was to ask for $200 for a concert ticket. When I said I couldn't afford it, she scoffed. "You can't afford anything these days," she muttered, before hanging up. I remember sitting there, staring at my phone, tears burning my eyes. She had no idea how much I'd given, how many dreams I'd buried for her, how much of myself I'd lost, and worst of all, she didn't care. So when she came home for the first time in months, when she finally decided to visit, expecting everything to be exactly the way she left it, and when she saw Josh living in her old room and acted like I had betrayed her, I realized something. She had never seen me as a person. I was just her mother, just someone who existed to give her everything she wanted. But now she was about to learn what it felt like to lose something. I sat in my empty living room, staring at the door my daughter had just walked out of. The house wasn't except for me. I was crying, not soft, quiet tears. The kind that shake your whole body. The kind that come from deep inside your chest, from a place you didn't even realize was hurting until it breaks open. She threw her keys at me. She stormed out. She chose to leave. And she hadn't called, not once. I waited 1 day, 2, 3, nothing. It was like I didn't exist. Like all those years, all that love, all those sacrifices meant nothing. And that's when I knew something had to change. For so many years, I thought I was helping her. I thought I was giving her a better life. But I wasn't. I was spoiling her. I was teaching her that her happiness mattered more than anyone else's. No, she had her degree. She had everything I worked so hard for her to have, and she still expected more. That ends today. 4 days later, my phone rang. Emma. I let it ring twice before picking up. Mom, she said, her voice casual, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just abandoned me. Is Josh gone yet? I closed my eyes. There was no, I'm sorry, not I miss you, just has my space been cleared for me yet? No, I said, my voice calm. He's staying. Pause. I could almost hear the frown in her voice. What do you mean he's staying? I thought he pays rent, Emma. He helps me with the mortgage. He's staying. Silence then. Fine. I'll stay somewhere else then. I exhaled. Okay. She hung up and that was that. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't care where I'd been sleeping after she threw her keys at me and left. But what she did do, she kept expecting me to pay for her. It started small. Emma, hey, can you send the usual for my rent? I stared at the screen. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilt about not sending money. I felt angry. I typed my reply carefully. Me, you're going to have to cover that yourself now. 3 dots. Emma, what? Stop joking. It's due tomorrow. I didn't reply. A few minutes later, she called. Mom, she said, her voice tight with frustration. What are you talking about? I'm not paying for your rent anymore, Emma. You always have. I shouldn't have, I said, my voice calm. And I won't anymore. You're graduating. You need to start supporting yourself. You can't just cut me off. I said, and I am. She let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh. How am I supposed to afford anything? You get a job. It was like I had slapped her. A job? Yes, Emma, a job. But I'm a student. Not for long. But I still need time to figure things out. You've had 4 years to figure things out. She huffed like I was being impossible. I can't believe this. This is so unfair. No, I said simply. What's unfair is that I have spent my entire life working for you, sacrificing for you, and you still think I owe you more. That ends now. And then the bombshell. 1 week later, another call. This time her voice was lighter, sweeter. Mom, listen, she said. I've been thinking. I know things got heated before, and I totally get why you're frustrated. But I have a plan now. I already knew what was coming. I'm going to do my master's degree. I closed my eyes. Of course, she was. And it's a really great program, Mom. It's expensive. Yeah, but it's totally worth it. I'll be so much more employable after. She was so confident. So sure I would say yes. She had no idea I was already shaking my head. That sounds great, Emma, I said. I hope you're able to afford it. Silence, then a forced little laugh. Mom, what? You want to do a master's? Take out a loan. The laugh died in her throat. But what do you mean? You said you'd always support my education. I supported you through your bachelor's degree. I said. I worked 2 jobs. I took out a loan against my house. I did everything I could to make sure you graduated without debt, and you did. Yes, she said quickly. And now I am done. She went quiet, completely silent. Then finally, you're serious. Yes, Emma, I'm serious. At first, she was furious. She demanded I reconsider. You can't just drop me like this. You're my mother. This is your job. You paid for everything else. But now, suddenly, you won't. I didn't argue. I didn't even raise my voice. I just kept saying no. Then, after days of fighting, the anger faded and the begging began. Mom, she whispered one night, sniffling into the phone. Please, I don't know how to do this on my own. I closed my eyes. I knew she didn't because I had never taught her how. That was my fault. And this was the only way she was ever going to learn. You'll figure it out, I said gently. I believe in you, she sobbed. I don't want loans, Mom, she said, desperate. Now, I don't want to struggle. You never wanted me to struggle. I never wanted you to be spoiled either, he said. But I made that mistake and it's time to fix it. She cried harder, but I stayed firm. I didn't back down because if I did, she would never change. And I wasn't going to let her keep taking from me. She had taken enough. No. Now she was going to have to stand on her own 2 feet. Emma didn't believe me. Even after all the arguments, after all the times I told her no, she still thought I'd change my mind. That's why she went no contact. She didn't do it because she truly wanted to cut me out. She did it because she thought it would punish me. She thought if she ignored me long enough, if she cut me off completely, I'd come crawling back, begging to fix things, that I'd break first, that I'd start paying again just to have my daughter in my life. But she was wrong. And when she finally realized it, that's when everything really fell apart. At first, I didn't hear anything about her. She went completely silent, blocked me on everything, and I let her. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't beg her to come back because for the first time I knew she needed to feel the consequences of her actions. If I chased after her, if I tried to fix things, it would just prove her right, that I would always come back, that I would always do whatever it took to keep her in my life. So I waited, and the silence stretched on. Days, weeks, months, nothing. I told myself I was fine, that this was what needed to happen. But in the middle of the night when the house was too quiet, when I sat alone at the kitchen table staring at my phone, I missed her, and it hurt. It hurt that the second I stopped paying for her, she didn't want to speak to me, that after everything I'd done, after all the sacrifices, all the love, all the years of putting her first, she still saw me as nothing more than a wallet. And the worst part, she was proud of it. I heard about her through family. She had struggled at first. She thought her degree would get her a high-paying job instantly. But she had no experience, no internships, no real skills outside of school, and companies didn't want her. For the first time in her life, she was being rejected, and she hated it. But instead of accepting reality, instead of working her way up like everyone else, she blamed me. That's when the smear campaign started. She went to my brother and his wife, Josh's parents, and told them her version of the story. Mom abandoned me. She threw me away like I was nothing. She let Josh take my place. She treats him like her real child. I could hear her voice in my head twisting the story, making herself the victim. And at first, they believed her. I got a call from my brother. Shelley, what the hell is going on? Why is Emma telling us you just abandoned her? I took a deep breath and I told them everything. I told them about the tuition, the rent, the luxury expenses. I told them how I'd taken out a loan against my house just so Emma wouldn't have to work. How I had spent years working myself to exhaustion, sacrificing my own life so she could have a debt-free future. And how the second I told her to stand on her own 2 feet, she cut me off like I was disposable. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then my brother let out a low sigh. Shelley, I'm sorry. We had no idea. I swallowed. You didn't spoil Josh like that, did you? Helloft, God no. He worked part-time all through college. We never handed him anything for free. Then why did I whispered. There was another pause, then softly. 'Cause you were alone, and you wanted to make sure she never felt like she didn't have enough. I closed my ears. I had spent my entire life trying to make up for the fact that Emma didn't have a father. I had spent everything I had trying to protect her from struggle, and all I had done was make her incapable of surviving on her own. Maybe it's time she learns, my brother said gently. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah, I said. Maybe it is. Emma stayed no contact, not just with me, but with everyone. She didn't just cut me off. She cut off my brother, my sister-in-law, even Josh, because they didn't take her side, because they didn't fall for the lies. So she pretended she didn't need any of us. She acted proud like she was standing on her own, thriving without me. But she wasn't. She was working low-paying temp jobs, barely making ends meet. And I knew that because my sister-in-law had run into her by accident. She looked exhausted, Shell, she told me, like she hasn't slept in weeks. She's struggling, I stayed quiet. Aren't you going to reach out? She asked. I exhaled. No, because Emma had made her choice, and so had I. Instead of chasing my daughter, I focused on myself for the first time in decades. I could breathe. I had time. I had money that was mine. I started painting again. It had been so long since I had picked up a brush, since I'd let myself be something other than a mother. And when I finally had my first art exhibition, I felt proud. Not just because my work was being shown, but because I had finally built something for myself. And that's when she walked in. She stood in the doorway staring at the paintings. And when she saw the self-portrait, a younger version of me holding a baby, she stopped. She read the plaque beneath it, a life put on hold. And I saw it happen. The realization, the understanding, the guilt. She turned, locking eyes with me across the room. She walked toward me slowly, hesitantly. You painted these, she whispered. I nodded. She swallowed. I never knew you could paint. You never asked. She looked down for a long time. She didn't speak. Then finally, in a small voice, would you like to have dinner sometime? I studied her. She looked different, less entitled, less spoiled, more human. I didn't know if I could forgive her yet, but I did know this. I'll think about it. For the first time in her life, she nodded and accepted that answer. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments.